West, field staff writer for harvestingnature.com and founder of GetOutAndGoHunting.com. I'm going to talk about basic calls that you can use on a mouth call. So I'm going to talk about yelping, cutting, clucking, and purring. I'm going to use two different mouth calls for this. So I have a lot of mouth calls. Last year I ended up with 9 mouth calls in my vest. Every year I have a lot of mouth calls in my vest, but there's usually 3 or 4 that become my go-to calls. And I'm going to use 2 of those calls from last year's go-to pack to demonstrate this. So the 2 calls I'm going to use a beginner double from Gobbler Stalker Calls. That's a company here in Ontario. This is 2 reeds, no cuts. So I just turn that back in front. That's just 2 straight reeds. And then I'm also going to use a Blue Demon mouth call. This is from Woodhaven Custom Calls. This is 2.5 reeds with a ghost cut, so front and back. I'm going to start out with yelping because that's really, again, the basic sound. Yelps kill gobblers. Yelps are the basic sound you're going to use to attract a tom turkey. So I'm going to start with just basically how to get a call to yelp. I'm going to start with the double reed. I highly recommend for anyone who's just starting out with a mouth call, start out with a single or a double reed call with no cuts. They require less air to operate. They're going to teach you the proper position where your tongue should be and how you're going to put air over the reeds, which we're going to talk about. And it's really a good way to learn how to make turkey sounds without getting too frustrated. So again, lots been demonstrated on the internet about what mouth calls are, but they're basically sort of latex reeds on a D-ring of steel with tape. Basically, they go in with the horseshoe facing out your mouth. There's usually a little dot on the bottom that tells you where the bottom is. If there's no dot, the longest reed is always on top. So again, I'm not going to really belabor how this goes in. You put it in your mouth, you push it to the roof of your mouth, and you seal it with light tongue pressure. And that light tongue pressure goes on the underside of the reeds. If this finger represents my tongue, it's sort of under the reeds like that. So a yelp is basically 2 notes. It's a high note and a low note. The high note comes from applying more tongue pressure on the reeds, and then as you release some of that pressure, you can do the lower note. So I'm just going to do the 2 notes separately on this double reed call. And getting the high note, the first note first, is probably the first thing you need to do when you're learning to use a mouth call. Get comfortable with your mouth and just get that high top note done. So put it in. And then I'm just going to push it up the roof of my mouth. I'm going to make that high note first. So I was just moving my tongue around a bit to get the right spot, even though I've had this call for a while. Still like to, before I go out in the morning, before I'm actually sitting in the bush, when in my car on the way there, I'll play with it a little bit just to get that good proper pressure. So once you get that high note, that high part, that's the front part of the yelp. Then releasing the tongue pressure a little bit will get you that back end of the yelp, that lower part. For some people, that means opening their mouth, dropping their jaw. Others do it with their lips. Others just simply do it with their mouth very close to closed, and they're just doing it with their tongue. So again, I'm going to do the second part of that note now, the lower part. So again, that doesn't really sound like a turkey on its own, but when you put the high part and the low part together, you get a yelp. So I'm going to do it slow at first, high, low, and then I'm going to run them together into a series of yelps. So for me, what I'm saying is I'm saying chuck or shook across the reeds. If I don't have the call in, I just make the same sort of way I bring air up from my diaphragm and push it over the reeds, is I'm going shook, 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 shook. And that dropping of my jaw, that second part of the shook, when my jaw drops down, that's that lower part. Some other guys say chalk or chick. or shook, you'll get used to what you feel comfortable with. I don't like to use any voice in it. Again, I'm just bringing pressurized air from my diaphragm, just like when I'm blowing a goose call or a duck call. I'm not puffing out my cheeks, as you can see. I'm just doing that high, low, and my tongue and a bit of my jaw movement, for me, is what's making that high, low. So one more time on the double reed. So again, that's the clear reed. There's no rasp in that. As you can see, it's all very clean and clear. Cuts and multiple reeds are what add rasp. So if I move to this 2.5 reed call with a cut in it, that ghost cut, you're going to hear it's still essentially the same call. It's that high, low, but there's a little rasp. So again, I'm doing that same high-low, get that high note, bottom note. If I do it with this one, broken out and slower, you'll hear again the two different notes. So the high first. There's already rasp in that, and then when I drop my jaw, there's the backside. So again, that's all I'm doing is that high-low sound that I'm saying again, shook, 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 with my tongue against the reeds. And that lower part of that sound that I'm presenting, that forces, for me, my jaw to drop, which lowers the pressure on the reeds, makes that second part, and then I just simply stop blowing air. When you stop blowing air, the reeds stop vibrating. So one more time with the cut call. So again, cadence is important. That's a cadence that works for me. Get birds to gobble. I've shot turkeys. That's sort of my standard cadence I go to. Other guys are more spaced out. Other guys are faster. But again, a basic yelp is just that higher note and that lower note. Get comfortable with the call in your mouth, though. That's the main thing. So once you can yelp, and again, that takes practice. You might take you months and months of practice to just get basic yelps, but stick at it. Once you learn to yelp, you can then start getting into clucking. So clucking, again, is just a short note. It's almost like a little pop that a turkey makes. It's a contented sound typically, or it's a where are you kind of sound. You'll hear them make it when they're feeding. You'll hear them make it when they're looking for other turkeys that they think are around. And all that is, to do it without a call in my mouth, again, I'll start on the basic double. To do it without a call in my mouth, I'm just going. It's almost like I'm spitting sunflower seeds out. So again, I'm holding tongue pressure against the underside of that reed like this, but I'm just building up a little air in my cheeks, and I'm just almost pressurizing it in my mouth a little bit and spitting it out. So again, if I do it on this call, it sounds a little bit like this. So again, I'm just holding my tongue against the reed, and I'm letting that air build up, that pressurized air from my diaphragm, and then I'm just kind of in one sharp motion going. So one more time. So that's a few clucks. Again, if I do it on the blue demon call. So again, I'm just letting that air pressure build up, and I'm going with my tongue against the underside of the reed. Cutting on a mouth call is a lot like clucking, just like cutting on a box call is a lot like clucking on a box call. It's just a sharper, louder sound that I like to do randomly. I don't put any rhythm in it. So again, this is going to be me going. Again, my tongue is underneath the latex. One thing I've always noticed, my wife actually makes fun of me, is when I cut, my body pops, and that's because I'm holding that air at a very high pressure, and I'm just pushing it very rapidly over the reeds. And I find for me that's actually makes my shoulders kind of move. So do it on the Blue Demon call. And again, this is a louder, sort of more aggressive, fired up, if you will, kind of sound. So that's cutting on a mouth call. Again, I'm holding my tongue under the reed, and I'm holding that firm, and then I'm really pushing almost explosively that air out. And again, I'm not using any of my vocal cords. I've hunted with guys, I've heard guys talk about it. You know, I try to cut, and I'm saying pop, or I'm saying put, and you try to just take your voice box out of it. Use that air low from under your lungs and your diaphragm, that stomach, that pressurized air. Use your abs to push it out. And that's cutting. The last sound I want to talk about is purring. Purring is the thing that all guys want to do on a mouth call, and it's hard to do, but if you can learn it and get it down really well, it's deadly. You know, the one main advantage of using mouth calling with diaphragms is your hands are free. Your hands are on your gun. You're not moving around working a box call or moving your hands to work a call. And purring is a really good confident sound. That means everything's okay. When turkeys are typically doing that soft purring, that's a confident sound. So when I purr, what I'm doing is some guys will gargle the back of their throat. They go grrr, grrr, grrr. I can't do that with a mouth call in my mouth. What I'm more doing is I'm rolling the tip of my tongue while maintaining it just barely under the edge of the latex. So again, this takes good tongue control. I'm using my tongue, I'm holding the latex and the call firm against the roof of my mouth, but just barely touching it, just barely holding it in place. And then with the tip of my tongue, I'm just building up that, again, that pressurized air from my diaphragm, and I'm just going. I like to keep my lips closed. Some guys will purr by actually fluttering their lips. They'll go. Again, it works. I've seen guys do it and it sounds great. I can't do it with a call in. What works for me is that just rolling the tip of my tongue, I'm just literally going against the back of my teeth. I'm going, and I'm keeping my lips closed, because for me that pressurizes that air and it keeps it mellow, keeps it soft. So again, on this call, the 2-reed no-cut call, it sounds a bit like this. So I threw in some clucks there just for realism and maybe show off a little bit, I don't know. But again, all I'm doing with the call out of my mouth is I'm just going. And I'm letting that air build up from down in my diaphragm, and I'm forcing it out with my tongue just barely touching the bottom of these reeds. On the Blue Demon call, the ghost cut call, it's got a little more, it's a little deeper sound. So again, having an extra reed creates a little more depth in the sound. So again, that's basically purring. With the call out of my mouth, again, I'm just going, rolling the tip of my tongue. If I open my mouth a little more, you can get a little more aggressive purring. It sounds a little louder, like fighting purrs. And again, that's a little more aggressive. So that's basic mouth calls, sounds you're going to want to try to make, and hopefully some tips and tricks to help you get there. Again, that's yelping, clucking, cutting, and purring. So get out, practice, and hopefully this year those sounds will help you kill a turkey. I'm Sean West, and thanks for checking out harvestingnature.com.